Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Slurp Squad news report. For this week, let's get right into our schedule. First things first, tonight at 9 p.m., 1 hour later than our normal time for raid, we're going to go ahead and do a Mythic for Rack re-clear. I want everyone to know that Mythic for Rack re-clears are a team effort. Once you get your mount, that doesn't mean that you can just stop coming. We need people constantly. If everyone starts leaving whenever they get their mount, then people aren't going to get their mount. So please, if you decide to start coming to these, try to be consistent with it, and try to continue coming to help out your fellow guildies. The other thing is there will be no splits this week. We're going to go straight into Heroic on Tuesday with the main roster, and then into Mythic, hopefully clearing Heroic pretty fast. The other thing is now officer meetings are going to be displayed on this weekly schedule just to add some transparency so you guys know when officers are talking, and generally I'll try to add some context as to why. The other thing that's different for this week is we have 2 webinar episodes. The originally scheduled one on Wednesday will be a Warcraft Logs Masterclass. Then on Sunday, we will have a problem and solution identification episode that will be held by Tell. Because of that, our alt run is being pushed back to 10 p.m. rather than our normal start time, or just whenever the webinar ends. Next on the list is Bullions. Created a nice useful flowchart for you to guide you on to spending those. Generally, if you have the legendary upgrade, you upgrade the legendary. Otherwise, you need to sim all 3 raids at Mythic difficulty at max upgrades, and select whatever the highest simming item is for you. Then, you have to evaluate how contested is that item, and then if it's not highly contested, how much better is it than the next closest. For example, let's say that you need the Razageth bow as a hunter, and it sims as a 9% DPS increase for you. You know that the Razageth bow is only needed by one other person in the raid because there's only one other hunter, so it's not super highly contested, but it's simming at 9% better. Now, you look at the next closest between all 3 of the raids, and you see that it's simming at 5% better. It would still be worth it to bullion the bow simply because it is over a 3% gain. There is a 4% difference from 5 to 9. That's how you should evaluate and use this flowchart. Next on the list, we're adjusting how we approach our strategic abilities for Aberrus, and generally moving forward. We have a plan for on Tuesday to run through Heroic and then go Kazara, Amalgamation, Forgotten Experiments. If we do not kill Forgotten Experiments, then we do not kill Forgotten Experiments at all. We will go on Thursday, no matter what, to Assault, then Rashok. We're going to change how we approach the earlier bosses. Me and the officers sat down together this week, and we evaluated our progress throughout the previous few tiers, including the times whenever we didn't have a solid 20-man roster. And we noticed something. We consistently underperform on the bosses earlier, and I believe that's not necessarily on the raid, I believe that stems from leadership. We as officers can do a better job in preparing the raid and giving them the knowledge necessary to be able to take down the bosses in a reasonable amount of time. Our big goal is to try and reduce the amount of pulls and the amount of prog time spent on these early bosses. Take Taros for example. We realistically should have killed Taros in 5 or 6 pulls, maybe 10 if we were having an off night. But unfortunately we pulled Taros 20 times. To us that's seen as a failure. I would hope that it would be to you as well, but I don't think it's your fault. I don't think it's the raid's fault. I believe it's leadership. So, we're going to be posting in the raid strategy section the strategies that me and the officers together have come up with, as well as do a slight adjustment to how we pull bosses for the first few times. Whenever we start a boss, I'm going to explain the first 30-45 seconds of the fight and screen share, and make sure that everyone fully understands that 30 to 45 seconds. We will then prog until we get to that 30-45 second mark. Then we will pop back into screen share, and we will do the next 30 to 45 seconds. If this was Farak, we would, for example, sit in screen share whenever we haven't pulled the boss before, and I would explain up to the through the first Dream Rend. Then, after we got through that, I would explain through the second Dream Rend and the intermission. Then, I would explain the start of P2 and the first set of Colossus, and so on and so forth. We're going to try this as a new method to try to reduce pool counts, but what's very important is that you participate. If you do not read the strategies, if you do not pay attention whenever things are being explained, there's nothing that we can do on our end to actually improve the raid. So it's very important that it's both from our end and you putting in the effort. Now, on the raid last week and the trials that we have and general player performance, I won't go through everyone here, but I just want people to know a general idea of where they stand. Last week, we ran splits, and then we dropped into Mythic with the roster that you see on the right of your screen. Well, splits did not go well, to put it bluntly. We underperformed quite significantly and wasted a decent amount of time, leading to not only us not completing splits, but having to decide not to do a Razageth split. Now, that's not saying that we couldn't have done a Razageth split, but I just believe it was not worth the potential time waste. I believe the underperformance is a combination of people not knowing the fights as well as we originally assumed, as well as the leadership thing we talked about previously with strategies. But talking a little bit more specifically, I think failures for this week were generally people were confused on how the bosses function, which is both an issue with the raid not putting in their part and the leadership not giving that information out in a more clear manner. The other failures were obviously tanks on Broodkeeper were underprepared. Going into Mythic, everyone was clearly underprepared for Taros. And generally, overall, I think there was a lack of focus throughout the split runs. Yes, this is Season 4, but remember, we're trying to use this as a testing bed to understand our guild on a deeper level and improve the guild. If you do not take this season seriously, then how can we possibly take any improvement from this? Now, on to how people performed in Mythic. I would say that both Ali and Aberrus performed fine. As far as healers go, Rena performed very well, Light performed very well, and Miso performed well. Alden struggled a little bit on Holy Paladin, but Alden has made the decision to go back to Ret Paladin. I think that pretty much all of the melee DPS performed well, outside of maybe Aaron having a little bit of issues with survivability. And then as far as our ranged DPS go, I think majority of the ranged DPS played up to their level. Trial-wise, we plan for this next week to flip this roster. If you are not in for Mythic, then you will be in for Mythic this week no matter what. If you get sat, that is not due to performance. Just to be completely clear, we are just rotating through people to make sure that everyone gets a shot inside of Mythic. So if you are sat this week, do not take it as that you performed badly. I want to give a special shout out to TOPDAM. TOPDAM just started playing Ret Paladin, and during the heroic clear on Tuesday, did not perform the best. But TOPDAM took the initiative to not only practice, but reach out to the officers, me and Alden, for assistance. Me, Alden, and Ali sat down with him and looked over some logs, and he truly practiced that and shown quite a bit of improvement on Taros. That's what we'd like to see from all of you. If you feel like or notice that your performance is lower than it should be, reach out to us. We're always willing to help, and we want to help. It's highly encouraged. You are not wasting our time. That's what we're here for. That's what we want. Our dream is that we have so many people asking for help that we can't help you all. Now, another note on doing your part is Mythic Plus. Majority of the guild is doing a pretty good job on this. Now, if you're spamming Mythic Plus, great. Just be careful not to burn yourself out. The main thing that I want to note is if you're not doing Mythic Plus. Generally, if you are not at a Great Vault score of 3,000 or more, then you are currently letting the raid down. It's your responsibility to get as much gear as you possibly can on your character, even though, again, this is Season 4, we're treating this as a normal season. If you do not show that you are willing to run in Plus, then what does that show for your willingness to improve on your own? I understand that not all of us like in Plus, but it's especially important to do it at least for the first few weeks of the season so that you can actually get the value that your character should week over week. After M+, we do have Mop Remix coming in a couple of weeks. I'd like to remind you that you can sign up for that in the Mop Remix channel, and the Mop Remix will be replacing our Sunday alt runs. You have one day a week where we will do Mop Remix raids on Sundays at 8 p.m. CST. If you're interested, again, please sign up in the pinned message on the Mop Remix tab. Now, I want to go over a few guild events that have happened this week. First and foremost, our longtime member Novellius decided to leave the guild. This was due to multiple things. First of all, he's decided to generally quit World of Warcraft. But Nev felt that we as leadership were not appreciating our raiders enough. And we were not giving enough feedback other than to a select few. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think it's important to take learning decisions. Because obviously, if he saw it, something's there. So we're adjusting how we're approaching our feedback. We're going to be trying to more consistently talk to each of you, more consistently reach out and let you know exactly how you're doing, both from my end and the other officers. I want you guys to know that it's important to talk to us about problems. Had Nev come to us with that opinion, then we could have made this adjustment before he decided to leave the guild. But unfortunately, we can't fix problems that we don't know exist. I'd like to remind you that the feedback channel in Discord does exist. It is there for you. If you want to do a less official way, just talk to an officer. Send a DM to someone. Just let them know. Let us know so we can help. You can criticize me in any way you would like to. I am all ears. Don't think that I'm going to bench you or shun you. Criticism is how we improve. And without me knowing that criticism, how could I possibly change something for the better? I think even if we disagree on a topic, it's worth at least discussing, and it can be a learning point no matter what. Along with the changes in feedback, we're going to change how we're doing the end of tier reviews. Originally, the end of tier reviews, you would get a PDF document, and it would be very official and everything would be written out. But I've decided I think it's a better idea to host the remainder of the end of tier reviews in Discord unless you specifically request a PDF document instead. Whenever I start working on your end of tier review, I will send you a question of, hey, would you like to get a PDF, or would you like to go over things in Discord and then get a PDF review afterwards of what we talked about in Discord? That way that we can have a more one-on-one and you can ask questions and also know where I got the information from, how I found that information, and generally learn the process of how to improve yourself. Now on more fun topics, BlizzCon was obviously canceled for this year, likely due to the lack of announcements they have to make. Because of that, I know that I had promised getting BlizzCon tickets for everyone, that since there's no BlizzCon, I figured maybe we adjust what we're doing. I'm currently working up the idea of potentially a SLURPCON that everyone can come to and we just hang out for a couple of days. I'll have more details on that on the next news report, but if you have any ideas or that sounds like fun to you, just let me know. Finally, I want to just go over our goals for this week. First, we want to clear Heroic with less than 2 wipes. This is just to make sure that we're not wasting time in Heroic and we're actually performing at the level that we should be. 2 wipes is within error for, we just had something stupid happen with tanks, or we just had something stupid happen with this guy who didn't know the mechanic. Then, we want to clear Forgotten Experiments on Tuesday. That's Mythic, obviously. Make sure that you do your part in reading the strategies, making sure your weak Rs are updated, making sure you're prepared to go into Forgotten Experiments on Tuesday. The same thing applies to Rashok on Thursday. Rashok, we should have pretty much the whole Prog day. We should be able to kill him pretty easily. If you do not have the knowledge of Rashok, please look in the raid strategy section after today. Today, we will post the initial strategies for all of these bosses and some adjustments tomorrow. If you do not look at that, then it's going to be way more difficult for us to help you. Finally, we need to evaluate the changes in progress from the leadership changing our approach to how we present and how we create strategies. This is just a baseline fundamental part of the guild that needs to be addressed throughout Season 4 so we know what we're doing in the War Within to more optimally get to our goals. This honestly is the largest task for this week and the most important. And that doesn't just involve leadership, that involves you guys. Let us know. What did you think? What do you like about it? What do you dislike? What would you change? All of that is super valuable to us as leaders. And finally, we want to go ahead and complete the current trials. It's not fun to be a trial, everyone knows that. So, for those that are trialing currently, expect to have a decision on your trial made by the end of this week. That's all I've got for this week, and I hope to see you around in some Mythic Plus, and see you for Mythic for Rack tonight.